Call meeting order, Tuesday, September 8th. Roll call, please.
Mayor Anderson.
Here.
Troy Boone.
Here.
Gerald Deline.
Here.
Troy Doden.
Here.
Art Shaw.
Here.
Teresa Swigan. Here. Mike Tiedemann.
Here.
Agenda was sent out on Friday, I believe it was. There's a couple of proposed adjustments here. Under new business, item number 1, the ordinance should be 2020-06 instead of 05. Removing item number 11, executive section for legal and personnel. And then person from DA Davidson, Jerry, is he coming later?
Yeah, I think he's supposed to be about 7:40, so.
We'll move that a little bit later on the agenda. And we also have Rox Transit under visitors to be heard. Is there a motion to adopt the amended agenda?
Glenn so moves.
Motion by Deline and seconded to adopt the amended agenda. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda is adopted. Minutes for August 17th and the special meeting on August 27th were sent out. Is there a motion to approve the August 17th minutes?
So I can make a motion to approve the August 17th meeting minutes.
Doden second.
Motion by Swagan and seconded to approve the August 17th minutes. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. Is there a motion to accept the August 27th special meeting minutes?
Doden so moved.
Motion by Doden and seconded to approve the August 27th minutes. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. Visitors to be heard. Melissa and Peter from Rox Transit.
Yes. What? Okay. Can we sit right here and talk?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Gerald had told us about it, and Dave, who's our driver, Dave Nilsson, who's been running the Beresford, Rox Transit, Beresford Transit site for several years. Him and his wife are retiring. So we will be bringing someone new in there locally from there. But I wanted I was talked to like Gerald and some other people in the community to, as we go forward in our transit, it's still going to be Beresford Transit. Nothing's going to change in that regard. We're still going to do the same rides and everything's going to be the same. But you might have noticed that you see other vans or buses that say Elk Point, Dakota Dunes, or North Sioux City, or Alcester in that way. And they're coming out of this bus barn over here. Well, that's by design. The DOT required us to cover all of Union County. And so they said, well, we got a bus barn here, right up here on the very edge in Union County. And so they eventually will have their own down there. But any funding that we ever request for matching funds is Beresford. And our accounting system states that. So what we will be doing on a regular basis, if we ever have city council, I'm sure they do, or county committee, we do ask that we will give expense and revenue reports on, here's any matching fund that the city gives towards transit. We show exactly where it goes to pay for the driver for Beresford and stuff like that. So like Elk Point, those guys have their own driver, their own vehicles. So does Alcester. But they're just using the bus barn to house stuff and make it a central location. And as those get busier, then those communities will supply housing for the vehicles. So that's all it's being used for. I just wanted to be clear on that. Pardon me. I'm not sick, please. I'm not. I have allergies. I'm not. I wouldn't be here if I was sick. But I wanted you guys to understand that because Dave, who's been doing it for a while, he's done a great job. He's going to probably stay on and be in our committee. But, we do get matching funds from the communities, the local communities, to help support it. For getting new vehicles, for buildings, maintenance, stuff like that. Ridership and the fares that people ride, that helps pay for the operations, for the benefits and all that. But we just wanted to be clear that the Beresford Transit and every penny is for Beresford. There's no change. The vehicles are for Beresford. None of that switching. It's still happening, and Elk Point and all those guys are covering theirs. And we're just using this bus barn to start. And in fact, in the next couple of weeks, they'll point one of their vehicles are going to be housed down in North Sioux City, starting in the next couple of weeks. So that's already happening. That is like, and the Elsesser one's already there too. But there was some confusion. People saw a lot of vehicles coming out of there. Like all of a sudden, where did they get all these vehicles? Well, I became the new executive director a couple of years ago, and we learned a lot of different ways that we can get vehicles that are less expensive. So we had to cover, as I said, the whole county. So now the whole county, Union County, has local and long distance service transit. That's done. It's a public transit. The fares are excellent and all that. And so we can give anybody in this county a local ride, or we can go into Iowa, Nebraska, and Sioux Falls, et cetera, et cetera. I just thought you guys should all know that. And, but it's Rock's Transit, but because the local communities help support it, they get their name on it, and we like them to give us feedback. If there's a different need, if you notice that, hey, our school needs different, need some help in this or that, we're not here to deal with school busing, unless it's needed, but we're not here to step on their toes. But just in case, nursing homes, assisted livings, we're doing a lot of that transit now. So we still will. Those things will not change. It'll still operate the same, with the same great customer service, but we have more service now. It's a really beautiful thing, because the county, that area is growing down there. And so DOT said, Peter, you guys, since you're there, you got to cover it. Does that make sense to everybody if you haven't noticed? Okay. And if there's any questions about the transit, please let me know. We will, I've given my card to Councilman Dahl in there, and talked with him several times. And so any questions, please let us know. We are here to make sure that everybody who needs a ride can get a ride. Okay?
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yes, sir.
So as you guys expand, we in Beresford Transit, Rocks Transit, we have our own board that we're working with. Are the other communities doing that too, like Oak Point? Are they going to have a board, or
Yeah.
Or is it? How does that work?
Well, how the boards work, and we would talk more about it, is that we go to these communities, and when you have a local committee or board, they're there to help as showing interest and support for transit in that community. And so, say we need to, like in Elk Point, Dakota Dunes area, we want to build a bus barn. Let's say that happens. So in those communities, that board will help us. They don't have to do the hard work. They're not supposed to do it. Rocks leads the charge. Rocks gets out their account payment with their help, hopefully, and who they know. They might know people in city council or whoever, and they help us. And then we have to have a neutral place to say if the mayor donates $20,000 for a new bus barn up, he's got to put that in a neutral place. That money sits in a neutral account that is the local community has that over that. Rocks runs the transit. The committee does not run the transit, but they help they give us like, hey, we got more need with our churches on Sundays, or they're extra eyes in the community for concerns, good things that are going on, those type of things. The committee really helps us to keep a pulse, because we cover transits from here all the way to Rosebud, all the way north of Gerald, all the way up to Flandreau. We cover we have transits all over. And so those local committees are helpful to say, hey, Pete, this is missing. Oh, well, let's see how we can get on that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for saying that. I appreciate it.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Committee reports, any reports? There are none, nor any department head of city administrative reports. Old business, second reading and adoption of ordinance 2020-05 regulating landscaping around electrical structures.
You guys did not make any changes to that, so this will be just the second reading and adoption. So if you guys are ready to move forward with that, we can go ahead and have a motion to approve it.
The motion to approve ordinance 2020-05.
I did make a motion to approve ordinance 2020-05.
Golden second.
Motion by Spagman and seconded to adopt ordinance 2020-05. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ordinance is adopted. Final true cost for Lewis and Clark Regional Water System.
You've had this on the agenda a few times, and we finally got what appears to be the last number that we're going to be working off of, but it's 113, 224.43, which is a little higher than what they had originally gave us last time we talked about it. It was 111,797, so it went up about $1,426. In our budget, we have put about $28,000 towards the payoff of that, and we should be able to get it paid off over the next 4 years if we continue on at that pace. So that is the plan, to get that paid off as fast as we can.
Is that going to accrue interest?
It will. We do not have any extra money in reserves right now, so to pay forward. So whatever we could pay out of our water balance, I guess we can take a look at that at the end of the year. Right now, we've been doing pretty good as far as the water sales go this summer.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Thank you to a couple of you up there. We'll take a look at that towards the end of the year and see where we come in at.
How much did you say we were paying on that, or could pay on that?
It'll be 28,000 is what I've got budgeted for next year towards that. And I've talked to Troy quite often about it, Troy with Lewis and Clark. And it's not due for 10 years, but the faster we pay it off, the less we're going to have to pay back.
Right.
That's just an information item.
Any other questions? Next item, consider first reading of ordinance 2020-06 on the appropriation.
I did not make you guys a full set of these again. Rather than do that, I just highlighted the areas that we've made some adjustments in since the last time we talked. Some of the things that you mentioned at the last meeting, a few little things here and there after a meeting with Greg Bates and Ben with the golf course. We made some adjustments there that I think will look pretty good as far as the budget goes. So I'm just going to kind of go through it. You've seen, I gave you what I had from last meeting, and then I just did the updates. So you don't have to look at each and every one of these if you don't want to. But in the council, we didn't make any changes, nor the mayor. No changes over that. We did look at a 1% increase in wages. So by what we originally talked, or what I had originally put in there was 2.5. I put that down to 1%. And you can see that the city administrator is just going to be wages and benefits that we would be reduced by $1,689. The finance office, same thing there. We did decrease that by $1,145. General government buildings, no changes in that. That's all part-time wages. Police with 5 officers, that was probably one of our bigger areas that we showed a decrease in, and that would be in wages and retirement benefits of $5,045. Stop me if you have any questions about any of this as we go through it. I'm going to go through it fairly quickly, and we can talk about any of them that you want to. The street there, we had a decrease of $2,015 in wages and retirement benefits. And at the last meeting, Teresa caught an error that I had made, resulting in a $36,000 decrease in the storm drainage maintenance line item there. So that the street budget showed a significant decrease because of that one error. Mosquito control and swimming pool, we didn't have any changes. Swimming pool is all.
Question back on the
Yep.
street department, Gary.
Yep.
We were looking at the expenses last time for machinery and vehicles. We've been budgeting $30,000 every year, but we've actually only hit that once. And that be reduced, or we just leaving it there for a cushion?
We always we look at it. We have a ton of equipment in there. One breakdown of a transmission in any of our backhoes is going to cost you about $15,000 to fix it. So with all
So you want to
the
leave
trucks,
cushion is what you're saying?
yeah. I mean, if we don't use it, it just rolls over to the next year or two. So but I hate to cut those things out much because there's so many pieces of equipment that they operate and are fixing on.
Good.
So swimming and mosquitoes, no changes. Parks, so again, wages and retirement benefits on that was a $785 decrease. We'll come back to community subsidies here in just a little bit. Library, we saw the decrease in wages and benefits there of $1,313. In planning and zoning, we didn't make any changes. So, again, tonight, whatever the ordinance that you have in front of you, it deals with strictly the general fund. Obviously, we want to know what's going on in all of our enterprise accounts also, because they do play a big role in bringing the revenue in to balance that account. So, the community subsidies was the item that I think you had looked at last time. We hadn't heard from the Park and Rec people yet and the Baseball Association. Those requests came in and I did include those, so you can just kind of take a look at it. Scott usually has some more information for you guys to review, but they're requesting $30,000 for PRCE and $12,500 for the Baseball Association. So if you guys want to talk about any of those in particular, you can make whatever adjustments need to be made to the, I have right now just under community subsidies, I've budgeted $70,000. That was the max I think we talked about going to at the last meeting. So we'll need to take and finalize them because we're at over 75,000 in requests right now.
So was that PRC recommendation or request same as usual?
It is. Last year, Mike, we did back down to 27,000. So, but we haven't given them up to the 30,000. And just made some adjustments last year. If I start at the top there, and they can just work their way down as far as the subsidies go. I've got them all in front of
Do
me.
you give a reason for wanting an increase with the Baseball Softball Association?
Yeah, what we talked about in there?
I think that was due to their thoughts on with the new turf, they would save the city that $2,500. So they were going request.
Yeah, and if you just change that back to 10, that is something that we budgeted into our parks already. So if they get the funds together and do the turf project, that money's already budgeted in the Parks Department to take care of the field as it stands now. So we can double budget that amount.
I would agree to bring that back down to 10.
That's the Baseball
Yeah.
Association coaches.
Yep.
Alright,
So we had originally budgeted or estimated 70,000, and it's at 70.
24.
75.1 is what you have total in there right now. I didn't put anything in there for Beresford Cemetery Association. They didn't give us an amount. All he did was provide us with what their current checking account balance was. So they were asking for something, anything that you guys would be willing to give. So at 75.1, that does not include anything for the Cemetery Association.
But if we went down to 10,000 on the baseball, it'd be at 72.6, right?
70, yeah, 70, yep.
Is the community bus been 8,000 every year?
Pretty much, yeah.
I think it went up 500 back in 2015.
Yeah.
The only thing I'll say about the community bus, I know Peter was here tonight, there's some changes going on, and I guess I'd like to recommend, and I'm on the committee, instead of just handing over the $8,000, I think I'd like to see something like, all right, we'll give you $5,000. And if we're happy with the outcome of what's going on, I'm just worried about some of the changes that I'm seeing there. And I just don't want to hand them over all of it in one lump pile. Because didn't we do that with baseballs, or not baseball, was it baseball or PRC?
PRCE, we reduced to 27,000 last year.
I guess I'm just giving you guys a suggestion that I'd probably save 5,000. And then if they're in dire need and their budget is down to nothing and they're running in the red, we can also go to 8, give them the extra 3,000. But I just don't want to hand them all of it right now. I want to make sure that this thing is going to go forward the way, Peter can tell us all kinds of stuff, but I just want to make sure that it works.
We do have 30,000 in the contingency fund, right, Jared?
There is, yes. Yep.
And we did move, where did we put the bouncy house is that?
So you had talked about making a subsidy just for the
Old-fashioned.
old-fashioned weekend. Mm-hmm.
Where's it at right now, Elaine? Is it just in
It's
the?
still in the contingency where they come in and
Contingency,
request for, but it's been the last 3 years they've come in and made a request. So we thought it would make more sense to have a subsidy than
And how much was this?
35.
3,500?
Mm-hmm.
That was for restrooms and
Yep, restrooms and about the inflatables.
That's the chamber, right?
Mm-hmm.
can we adjust the contingency fund down with this meeting?
Sure.
So I would suggest we add a chamber old-fashioned weekend subsidy of $3,500 and reduce the contingency fund by a corresponding amount to $26,500.
And Beresford Cemetery, anybody thoughts on that?
Well, we're gonna lower the community bus to 5,000 initially.
Yeah, that's just go to 5,000.
Everyone agree with that?
Do they need the 8 to operate at last year, and the year before, and the year
They
before, and
have.
the year before?
They have, but Peter's been giving me information that says that they have other means of bringing in revenue, grants and stuff, and I'm like, well, all right, why should, I guess my concern, council, is that until I can see what Elk Point is putting into this and what Alcester Community Council or subsidies are, I just don't want Beresford to be 8,000, and if we go by population, Elk Point and Beresford are the same size. So if Beresford does 8,000 and all of a sudden I find out that Elk Point only did 5,000, or who knows, they've never had this on their plate before. So that's what I'm concerned about, is I don't want to see Beresford be here and Elk Point be here. And population-wise, Alcester, I'm sure, will be a lower number, which is fine. But I just want to see Peter's results is what I want to see as a council member. That's why I'm recommending let's put it to 5,000 and see what happens.
Do they show you the financials, Roland?
He's assuring me. I haven't seen any finance. That's why I asked about the board, because I want to see what the other communities are doing. I mean, if we're going to take care of, if they are going to, the transit is going to take care of these other communities, I just want to make sure everybody's doing their fair share, is all I'm saying. And if Elk Point is stepping up to where 8,000 like we are, their population's the same, I'm good with it then. But I just want to see. So that's why I'm saying let's put 5,000 in that line for right now.
If we put 5,000, we'd be down to 69,600. Which is below our $70,000 target.
When we send the letters out, we do tell that this is not a guarantee of funding for next year. I mean, just because we put $5,000 in doesn't mean that you have to give that to them.
I'll talk about the cemetery though. I'm on the board for Emmanuel Lutheran Cemetery, and it costs Emmanuel Lutheran Cemetery right about $3,000 a year to mow and trim and spray Emmanuel Lutheran Cemetery, which is adjacent to the Beresford Cemetery. So I guess I propose, this is my thought, is I don't want to cut out too much, but I'm thinking about the bright beginnings. I mean, if they need to raise their fees, I guess they need to raise their fees. If I would like to subsidize the cemetery something, $2,000, $1,500, which would be half of the mowing, is what it costs the Emmanuel to mow. So I'm kind of thinking that the Beresford Cemetery would probably be about the same, because I think they're about the equal size.
Didn't you have some information last time, Jerry?
He just had what they have basically in their checking account. Yeah.
Where do they get their funding? Donations?
Memorials.
Sale of lots.
Sales of
memorials,
lots, grave sites.
Donations, just, I think, is it Lyle Savvy mows out there?
Chris, no.
Yeah, and I think they've donated their time.
Their checking account with $1,000 in it. Mowing expenses are $3,000 to $4,000 a year, and then they sell graves. It says $500 to $1,500 per year is what they could bring in. So if 1,000 in there, and if they bring in 1,500, they don't have enough to cover their mowing expense. I don't know if they get it.
I
They
believe
have a fund set up for perpetual maintenance. I would think most of them do, don't they? You don't either?
Well, that's what our checking account is for perpetual care. But the church is a little different because I receive a lot of memorials at funerals through the church for Emmanuel's cemetery. People don't think about that so much in the Beresford cemetery. I don't think they get the memorials like a church would receive. When Emmanuel sells a grave site, one grave site is $250, and I believe that the Beresford cemetery is the same. So if they sell 2 grave sites, and we average about 4 grave site sales in Emmanuel a year, you know, so we find that normally about $1,000 roughly is for sale of lots. So I'm going to guess that that's probably about where Beresford cemetery would be.
If we put $3,000 in the cemetery association with 5,000 in rocks, 10,000 for baseball, and left everything else the same, we get 72,600. Would that throw our entire city budget into a tailspin?
You're saying 72,000?
72,600.
I'm not thrilled that I think we can bring PRC back down to 28,000. 27.5 if we want to be right at 70,000. I know they got hit this last year with COVID not having as good of revenue for Kids Connection, but Watch Puppy has started back up, and you know, hopefully things continue good. They'll have their tuition income for the rest of this year. Plus they have off it after school for.
So 27,400 is the recommendation for PRC, which would put us right at 70,000.
I guess I said 27. I like round numbers, but I said 27.5.
You
I
want
know
that
it's
nice
Faith
round
in Action,
number,
that's the
go
one.
5,500 Faith in Action.
Why did these senior citizen program ask for $2,000 more? Was there something they were doing?
Was it 2,000 or 1,500?
They got 2,500 last year and requested 5,000 this year.
Oh, I was looking at 3,000.
She wrote down repair and update maintenance on eaves troughs and gutters.
They had a problem with one room where the water was running into the wall. It was moldy, so they dug it out. But they did talk to Joanne. Told her that the budget's going to be pretty tight this year, and they could maybe be more detailish with the money. And I did talk to Jerry for quite a bit. He wanted to, I'm not on the board anymore. I was a board member for quite a few years, but now I'm still a member. But Jerry made a comment that some of the fees, we only charge $10 a year to a member, that if we should look at maybe increasing the fees a little bit more, and to see if we could get some revenue. Back in the day, we used to do a lot of fundraising, but now it's getting tighter and tighter to get money for fundraising. But I mean,
I mean, if we move that, what they got last year, $3,000, or 2,500, if we gave them 3,000, they're still getting more.
Yeah, I'd go with 3,000 if you could get 3,000, even a little bit for the rain gutters.
So we're at 5,000 per bus, 27,500 for PRC, Teresa, 3,000 for senior center, 10,000 for baseball, fireworks, Faith in Action, 5,600. If we left everything the same and added 3,000 to the cemetery association, we'd still be under by a little under $2,000. The targeted at 70,000, I believe.
Are you including your 3,500 for bouncy houses?
Yeah, that would be coming out of the
Yeah.
contingency fund, because that's what we paid for it last,
Oh, so you're,
We're gonna remove that from the contingency.
and then
Just-
add
yeah, in the
that.
beginning, and just started at 26.5.
I think that's fine, I think all those numbers are right in order or where they should be.
Yeah, I got one question. I kind of agree with Gerald on the right beginnings. I would like to cut that a little bit. Because a couple of daycare centers did talk to me that do daycare here in town, and they wanted to know why they got it and why can't the other ones apply? Because there's about 10 or 15 smaller ones. So I thought we made a comment for one
But
year.
those other ones are not, this is a nonprofit, right? Those other ones are private enterprise.
Yeah, I'd still like to cut it, maybe $1,000, 1,500. And then the Summerfest, how are we paying for that? Is that part of this too?
Contingency
Oh,
fund.
okay.
We paid for it on the contingency fund last 2 years, so we'll just put money
Yeah,
aside.
I'd like to see at least lower than we voted on for the max for the charity.
We'd be lower right now, even at 4,000 for Bright Beginnings.
Okay, where would we be at?
We'd be at like 68,800-ish.
How about 800 cut it?
Right, Teresa.
Keep it
680.
Well, we're not,
I'm having Teresa double check your numbers.
I'll just make.
Just make it up.
Well, I was actually going, but then I just started moving more numbers to the wall.
I would say we leave 4,000 in the daycare because, I mean, if there's one thing we don't want to short right now, it's daycare. I mean, we're trying to get people back to work.
I come up with 68,000 without putting the bounces in.
That's at 4,000?
I come up with 68,100.
Oh, well, did you take the one, I took Faith in Action to 5,500, so that would be their
okay.
$100 difference.
I don't
You got paid at 55?
Okay, so we
But we don't
got,
need to, I mean, if we're under.
Well, I could be
seven,
wrong, 'cause I
so-
didn't mind in my head.
Well, you know, that's a
okay, so
I
we're
didn't hear the adding machine down there.
5,000 for the bus, 27,500 for PRCE, 3,000 for the senior center, 10,000 for baseball, 3,500 for chamber, 5,500 for Faith in Action, 1,500 for downtown, 2,500 for the cover, 2,500 for youth and families, 3,000 for cemetery association, and then the one debate is the Bright Beginnings daycare is 4,000, or is there a majority want to lower it?
So leave it for now.
Just quickly though, on the cemetery, I know we wanna help them, and I agree with helping them, but I feel like if we come in and just say, here's $3,000 to cover your entire operations, and I just feel like they have to have skin in the game too. We don't cover 100% of expenses for any of these other organizations on here, so if their expenses are $3,000 for the year and we give them 100% of that, I just feel like we gotta start them a little bit lower to make sure, you know, if you wanna be part of this subsidy program, you've gotta match it, you know, you've gotta match the efforts.
Well, I said 1,500, but,
1,500?
that's half of 3,000, just
I-
because of, that's what Emmanuel's roughly around.
I would go with the 1,500, I'd be good with that.
So we're at 66,500.
And 70,000 even with the bouncy house and rework contingency. Also contingency right where it's at.
30,000 in the contingency.
And a few meetings ago, we decided to keep our subsidies at about 70, right? Wasn't that the number? Yeah. So that works out.
Good work.
All right,
Do we vote on that, Jerry, or is it just?
No, it's part of the budget.
It'll be just in the budget, yeah. Next meeting you'll vote.
Alrighty
The
then.
1,500, that was went to the cemetery then?
Yep.
What did we end up with for the daycare?
4,000.
All right.
You got all that?
Yeah. Wasn't that much. All right, well, that's pretty much where you're at as far as the what we would do today is just have the first reading of the ordinance, the general fund, the ordinance 2020-06, which we put on the first reading today, so there's no action that has to be taken, but we don't want to make any major changes between now and then we'd have to have another meeting to make some major changes. So if everyone's okay with that, we will have the correct version with everything updated in it for you at by the next meeting here. We'll send that out to you. We can take a look at finalize these enterprise accounts here real quick, just kind of let you know where we ended up there too. Liquor, I didn't make any changes there because we have to set full-time wages there with a new manager to be hired. We do have about, I think, 7 applications in here. Anyone wants to look at any of those, I guess they sure could. Take a look. We haven't scheduled any interviews yet, and you guys can take a look and kind of see what you think. Water, we did do a decrease there for the wages and retirement benefits of $1,230. We added $28,000 expense to pay back Lewis and Clark for regional water, which we talked about earlier. Electric, they've got a fairly sizable budget for wages. We did decrease that by $5,780. The dump truck was removed, and we just transferred that to reserve. So, as you know, last year and this year, we've really taken those reserves down to just about 0 in there. So we do want to start building those back up to an acceptable level, and then we can probably start looking at some other of these purchases for equipment, things like that. But we want that level to get to an acceptable amount before we do a bunch of these other purchases. Sewers, we saw a $1,600 decrease in wages and retirement benefits. Telephone was $7,630 decrease in wages and retirement. The solid waste, we were able to decrease the transfer from 30 down to 25. Cable TV, no changes there. And probably the biggest thing that we had from last meeting is we did meet with Ben and Greg and put together some updated numbers along with whoever from the committee could be there. Elaine and I were there. We talked about fees and things like that we're going to be adjusting next year in a few different places. We won't get into all of those. They're not big numbers by any means, but there's some areas that we thought we could take a look at. We'll be looking at some of those in the event center. There's a couple areas there, but we've looked at some small rate increases also. Something we did add, we're going to make sure we crack seal and chip seal the parking lot there. So I've included $3,000 in each of those, the event center budget and also the budget for the clubhouse. They each take care of half of that cost. We did include those there so that we get that done next year. We have looked at doing the bike path a little bit. We did look at doing some of the swimming pool. I think each of those could hold off 1 more year. So rather than budget anything this year, I think we'll do the parking lot at the bridges first thing next year, and then the others will continue to monitor and see if even our guys can do some of that maintenance if they have time. So we have rented the crack sealing machine before. Our borrower from the state, and we were able to do some of that down by the Catholic Church around the corner there, around the curve and all that. We did that ourselves. So we might be able to do some of those crack sealings and filling and stuff like that. So we'll look at that, try to decrease those a little bit. So, but you can take a look at those. I think what we're looking at getting back to, this year obviously we're going to be down a little bit in some of our revenue numbers as far as the inside of the clubhouse, maybe some liquor sales, beer sales, food sales, all due to COVID type things. We think we can get back to the same level at least as 2019, if not better next year. We're getting a lot of rounds played this year. We're getting a lot of traffic out there, of course. I think those things are going to come around for us next year again. And I think those the changes that we made, we're still not going to be profitable there, but we're going to be back to, I think we started about 160 in the hole. Now we're just a little over 91,000 in the hole, so that's a $70,000 swing. So, and that puts it all on myself and the guys out there to make sure that we come in at those numbers. So I think he's been doing a fairly decent job there as far as trying to manage what he can with the reduced seating and those types of things, especially for about 2.5 months when we really didn't have the clubhouse open other than for takeout only. So Any questions on any of that? Those numbers, obviously, we'll be finalizing them a little bit later, but we do have to make sure we have enough transfers, especially from the telephone, 350,000, the electric, 350,000, and then we do $25,000 for $25,000 out of the solid waste, so. Any questions, or we can move on?
Questions? Thanks.
Okay, we'll put that on file then, for the ordinance 2020-06.
Sounds good. Next item, resolution 2020-15, establishing a cost for full service on sale restaurant license.
Part of the process of setting that license was to determine if a liquor license had been sold within the last 5 years. Plastics took over about 4 years ago. Elaine got a hold of Lonnie, and Lonnie filled out a statement that he paid $700, I think, for that liquor license. So, in setting the state minimum for that liquor license would be $2,000, based on the population at the most recent 10-year census, which was the population at 2005. So, Tom wrote this resolution up today, and if you guys are ready to move forward with setting that cost, the cost would be $2,005, and that's just the initial license, and then renewals would be what are typically paid on an annual basis, which would be $700.
We can pass this resolution.
The resolution would be passed tonight, 20 days before it becomes effective from publication, so.
Is there a motion to approve resolution 2020-15?
Check make a motion to pass resolution 2015 as Jerry Simon stated. The fee would be $2,005, and then a yearly fee we said of $700.
That's not in there, Art, that's just a fee that we charge.
Oh, okay.
For renewal, that's
$2,500
at the end of the year.
$2,005.
Yeah.
Second.
Motion by Schott and seconded to approve resolution 2020-15. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution carries. Petition for annexation of Lot 1, Curve Addition.
The sewer rates are right in front of you there.
One question back on
Oh, I'm
this
sorry.
restaurant license. After the 20 days, someone has to apply and the council has to approve that
Right.
license then?
There's a hearing process that you'll have to go through. Elaine will put a nice little notice in the paper.
Okay.
It has to be 7 days prior to the hearing, so.
Skip it. So resolution 2020-16 is the next item, amending sewer rates, and this increases it just by $1 per month, is that correct?
Yeah, so all we're doing is taking the minimum monthly fee from $12.60 to $13.60. So everyone's sewer bill will increase by a minimum of $1.
And then this will put us in compliance.
It'll at least qualify us for grants or for the loan forgiveness possibly when we go to apply. So we'll at least be at the $30 that we require. So.
Okay.
Dolan moves to approve resolution number 2020-16.
Second.
Motion by Dolan, seconded to approve resolution 2020-16, amending sewer rates. Any further discussion?
That will be effective November 1, so.
For discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution passes. Annexation of land, or lot.
Glenn and Mary Knudsen have built a new metal building south of the Methodist Church. They've actually petitioned to annex that into the city limits. They want to be part of the community. They're coming forward now and said that they would like to be a part of it, and they would like to annex the Lot 1 of Curve Addition in the northwest quarter of Section 8, Township 95, Range 50 west of the 5th Principal Meridian, Union County. So they, being 100% of the owners of the property, can petition this. We don't have to notify anybody else. They're just coming in. So all you have to do is pass the resolution, we'll file it with the county, and they'll become part of the city of Beresford after 20 days after publication. So.
Any downside to that for the city?
What does it cost us? We
Nothing.
have to install water, sewer, everything.
Well, they do not have, they have city water, right? The sewer itself, in order to come in, it has to be available. We had Jeff Heidelberg take a look. He's our street water sewer superintendent. He said the closest available would be about 600 feet. Even though there's a manhole that sits out there, it's not a manhole that we would tie into to hook this one up. It would be very, 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 very expensive. If you even could do it, he said the one that you would hook into would be coming off 7th Street, which is off out of the Ash Creek area. That's where we have another sewer that would be coming out of there eventually. So we don't have to provide sewer to him. He has a holding tank there right now. I think he's actually got a leach field in there. It was big enough that he could put a leach field in the county. So that's already in place. We got water. He does not have electricity from us. So, but he will be paying property taxes to the city of Beresford, no longer the township. County's the same, school's the same.
So is it just the corner, basically south of the trees? Or north of the trees, yeah.
North and west.
Follows the old curve, right?
Yep. When they abandoned that parcel got reverted back to the Dolans. The Dolans sold to him about a year ago, I guess.
So it's just that triangle piece of land.
Right.
Can we move to, accept resolution 2020-17?
Shot second.
Motion by Dwayne and seconded to approve resolution 2020-17. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution passes. Okay, request number 2, Altitude Energy.
The amount of that's $168,294.99. They request for the east substation construction and west substation modifications. So
Give me that number again.
$168,294.99.
No moves to approve pay request number 2 for Altitude Energy in the amount of $168,294.99.
Shot second.
Motion by Doden and seconded to approve pay request number 2 in the amount of $168,294.99. Any further discussion?
Just have one general question, sorry. Because Gerald and I were talking about when we were signing the bills out there. So there's one on the bills to be paid for 600 and some thousand.
That was approved at the regular meeting in August.
Okay. I just.
But it was not due until now, so I held off on paying it until.
No, that's fine. I just didn't know why we would have to do a pay request for this amount, if not that amount, but we already did it.
So
Okay.
this is for payment of the substation or work on the substation?
The new one.
The new one.
And then there's modifications that have to be done in our old substation to tie it all together.
So did we make a decision on, did you guys go out and look at when they brought in the new substation with all those?
The building itself?
Yeah.
Yeah, they've hired someone else to come in and make all of the fixes to that building. The
Okay.
contractor did it, so, yeah.
But we're not paying for that right now?
No, we won't. We'll have to sign off on everything before we're all said and done. We hold money back until we have a chance to walk through with our engineer. So anything that's not right, we'll document all them and then they have to fix them before they get the final fix.
Okay.
So, yeah, he's got somebody fired, the other guys that were putting it in. The contractor did and brought somebody else in to finish the work.
Okay.
Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Pay request approved. 2020-2021 Safety Management Program Contract. I think this is what allows us annually to stay in compliance.
Right, yeah.
We've done this for a number of years.
It involves all of our employees that want to take part in it, and obviously electric, telephone, water, street water, sewer, do. The girls from City Hall will go occasionally if there's things that address them. And I know Elaine's part of the safety committee, so she gets involved with a lot of this. But we do it every year. It's a good service to have, and
Shot
helps us.
motion for 2021 safety management program contract with Jerry Simon stated.
Wait a second.
Motion by Schott and seconded to approve the 2020-21 Safety Management Program Contract in the amount of $11,700. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Encroachment easement.
Rihanna Lewis is looking to purchase the house that she's currently living in. It was owned by her grandpa and grandma. And, she's been living there, and it's gonna be, with the interest rates, it's a good time for her to move forward. But when they did the survey, they found out that the rear garage that she has on the property, which has been there probably before we had any zoning or anything in effect, but it encroaches 4 feet onto the property, so, or onto our property, rather than making her move the whole thing. Said a lot of cities, and we thought we had done this in the past, we created this encroachment easement, which would allow her to get the funding in place. That's the bank needs this document so that she can move forward, so. Rather than make her move it, we haven't had a problem with it from when it was built till now. If she does decide to do anything with it or tear it down, she'll have to go back onto her own property, so. This will give her the right to get the purchase done, and the banks will be happy, so. We just need to have a motion to approve that encroachment easement.
Shall make a motion for encroachment easement for 303 North 4th Street as Jerry Seven stated.
Motion by Schott, seconded to approve encroachment easement for 303 North 4th Street. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Appointment to the library board. I'd like to, the recommendation of Jane, appoint or nominate Laura Hosing to the library board. I think that would fill the one last remaining spot. Motion to approve the appointment.
So moved to approve the appointment.
Golden second.
Motion by Bruin and seconded to approve the appointment of Laura Hosing to the library board. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Step pay increase for Kathy Stussy up to the wage of $18.85. Is there a motion to approve the step pay increase?
Golden so moves.
Shot second.
Motion by Doug and seconded to approve the step pay increase to $18.85 for Kathy Stussy. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approved. Subsidy drawdown request for the Beresford Women's Entrepreneurial Group in the amount of $1,500. Is there a motion to approve the subsidy drawdown request?
Is that what was budgeted?
Yes.
Yes.
Golden so moves to approve. Beresford Women Entrepreneurs Drawdown Request.
Second.
Motion by Dolan and seconded to approve $1,500 subsidy drawdown to the Beresford Women Entrepreneurs Group. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Subsidy drawdown request community covered in the amount of $2,500. Is there a motion to approve that request?
Lane so moved.
Golden second.
Motion by Delane and seconded to approve the drawdown request to the Beresford community covered in the amount of $2,500. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Drawdown request is approved. I believe our other visitor is here. Jerry Smethman.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Good evening. My apologies for running late this evening. I had the distinct pleasure and privilege of being in front of this council back in 2012. I had the opportunity to refinance some debt for the city, and wasn't sure that we'd ever have a chance to do it again. And lo and behold, rates are so darn low right now that can actually happen. And so I given Jerry a call, and Jerry and Elaine have met with me and requested I come and make a quick presentation to the council with regard to the opportunity. And so I'm here tonight to do so, and we've got these little packets here for everyone. Yeah, this is an updated one, so thank you very much. And so, glad to be here tonight. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Real quickly, just wanted to go through the booklet and kind of show you where the savings stand from the standpoint of refinancing your 2012 GO refunding bonds, your Series 2012A certificates of participation, your Series 2012B certificates of participation, and your Series 2013 certificates of participation. So for those of you who may not have been on the council when I was here last time, I've got a little bit of a company overview that I put in here just to give you a little information about our company. There's a couple of things I'd like to point out. Since 1982, our firm has underwritten in excess of $1 trillion of bonds and certificates for our South Dakota issuer clients. We're very proud of that. That's on the very first page there of section 1, page 2 of section 1. As far as the national negotiated underwriter rankings, we rank 5th nationally by number of transactions, and second, by par amount, we rank 5th, and then as far as number of issues, we rank 2nd as far as Nebraska is concerned. And I'm not sure why we put Nebraska in there, folks, but I think because we used a template from a Nebraska transaction, so my apologies for that. So, but in any event, 5th in the nation by number of issues, which we're very, very pleased about. A little bit of a background on me. That picture was taken in 2010. I'm not sure I've changed much, but I know that I have. So just a little bit of background on myself, and then I'd like to move into the numbers. So with regard to refinancing your Series 2012 GO refunding bonds, on this first page it shows the sources and uses, and I'm on section 2 here. And you'll issue $760,000. There'll be a cash deposit of $743,184.19. That will be your refunding deposit that will pay off the old bonds. Your bond counsel fee with Mr. Todd Meyer Henry will be $4,050. Registrar paying agent fee would be $1,100. Our fee would be $11,400, and because bonds are sold in $5,000 increments, there'll be a little bit of a rounding amount, assuming that this all stays exactly the same when we go to price the transaction. So any questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
You said 5,000, if you're a little above, extra you stay with the bond until it's paid off in full with the rebate or whatever.
That's correct, Mr. Schott. So if you look at the next page, sir, you'll see that your economic gain, your net PV savings, which is the second to the last line there on that second page, you'll see the current economic benefit of $31,199.06. That's what you say. Absolutely.
Thank you very much, sir.
You betcha. And that's a 4.24% present value savings on the par amount of the refunded bonds. So that's a good savings there.
Oh, yeah.
Page 3 has a breakdown for you of that information, so it shows you on a per annual basis how much you will save. And then there's quite a bit of information in here. We always like to get as much as we can in here so you can take a look at it. But I would like to show you the bond pricing, 0.75, 0.8, 0.85, that's on page 5, all the way out to 1.15 in 2026. So, rates are incredibly low, and this is a non-rated transaction. You wouldn't have to get a rating or anything of that nature, and you still can get some really, really good savings based on these low rates. And so the only other portion of this I'd like to show you is your aggregate net refunding debt service, which is on page 8. You'll see that we're not refinancing the 12/1/20 maturity. We're only going to be financing the 21s to 26s. So Elaine and Ms. Ducey, you will be making that payment like you normally would, but we're going to put that payment amount, if I remember correctly. No, actually, you're going to go ahead and just make that payment. It'll be $111,182.50 on 12/1/20. And that should be a little bit less than what you were paying already. And then you got your summary of your bonds refunded of $735,000 on page 9. And the rest of it is escrow requirements that calculates the amount of principal and interest that you will redeem. The prior bond debt service, your summary of unrefunded bonds, which is at $110,000 plus the interest for $1,000. And, you know, refunded bond debt service. So, that's the overview with regard to the bonds. With regard to the certificates of participation, if we start on section 3, you'll see that it's a little bit of a different presentation insofar as with GO bonds, you don't need to have a debt service reserve fund because the city is in effect pledging everything that's within the city boundaries. So it's a full faith and credit pledge. With certificates of participation, that is in fact not the case. And so investors want to see a little bit more security in a certificate issue than they would in a general obligation bond issue. And so that's why you see the debt service reserve funds. So you've got your par amount of $500,000, and then you would have your debt service reserve fund from the 2012 A's as a source of funds. And again, this is section 3 for the paying cancel refunding into series 2012 A's. So that gets you $663,000 of total sources. And then again, we go through the refunding cash deposit, but then you also have a debt service fund, debt service reserve fund, and then your legal counsel fee and a trustee fee. And the reason that there's a trustee fee, because there wasn't with the bonds, is because of the nature of how the certificate of participation transactions are structured. So that it always requires a trustee. And so that's why that additional fee is in there. Our fee, and then the rounded amount once again. And so if you go to page 2, Mr. Scott, you will see that there is a net PV savings of $7,937.55, which doesn't probably get you as excited as the earlier one. That's right, and it does. And you know, normally 1.34% savings, you know, there's some concern as to whether or not it's actually worth doing it. But the savings that we calculate are always calculated after all of the expenses of the transaction. So it isn't savings less the costs. We figure out all the costs, include that, and then come up with the savings number. Okay, so after what we say the delivery date expenses. So 1.34%, it's not great, but you know, when they figured we could have refunded it, you know, when we did them back in 2012, and so might as well take advantage of it. That's kind of how we're approaching it with regard to this one. And then third page, you've got your savings pages again. And the other thing I'd like to point out is you'll see quite a bit of a difference between your annual savings on page 3. You know, you've got 122,000 annual savings versus net PD savings of $79,37.55. The accounting convention requires that you reduce your savings from the debt service reserve fund because of prior funds on hand, and then you add back the new debt service reserve fund to come up with your savings on a net present value basis, meaning today's savings in today's dollars. You guys actually will save that money over time, but typically we like to look at what the present value savings are. And so that's why, you know, I'm focused on the present value savings, but you will save that $122,000 over time. So that's pretty good savings. And then basically I'd like to go on to section 4, which is the 2012 B's, and you'll see that again it's, you know, par amount of $370,000. You've got your debt service reserve fund, and then we're going to include your pro rata debt service payment as of 12/1/20, and so that will be included as a source in the financing in the refund. And so that gives you total sources of $723,364.56. Got your refunding escrow deposit again, it's a cash deposit. Debt service reserve fund, your certificate counsel, that's Mr. Meyer Henry, down in Sioux Falls. Again, you have your trustee fee, your registrar paying fee, and then our fee, and then the rounded amount. So even this small amount, given where interest rates are, you're saving, you know, on a net present value basis on page 2, $10,140.27, and it's as short as it. So even though it's 1.52%, it's still quite a bit of savings from that standpoint. And then you see from a annual savings total on page 3 that it's $161,650.77. So, it's still very good savings. And then we go to section 5, and that's the refunding of your series 2013. $740,000 par amount, debt service reserve fund, pro rata debt service payment to 12/1/20. So you've got $933,475.06 for your total sources. You've got a refunding cash deposit, your debt service reserve fund, Mr. Meyer Henry's fee, trustee fee, that's direct paying agent fee, underwriter's discount, our fee, and then the rounding amount. So on page 2, you'll see that $30,950.26 in net present value savings, and the percentage savings of that is 3.72%. So very good savings on that as well. Just like with regard to your GO bonds. And $86,000 of annual savings, and then $30,950.26, as I said, in the NPV savings. And that pretty much covers all of the refunding side of it. I put in section 6 a aggregate refunding savings, so you folks have everything kind of at your fingertips. You don't have to keep flipping back and forth between all these pages that I've got in this presentation. But so it shows you what your gross savings are, which are the annual savings, $402,000, and then your total net present value savings of $80,227.40. And Jerry and Elaine, when I came up and spoke with you on August 20th, we were looking at $92,000. So the reason that it's gone down $12,000 is because interest rates have gone up a little bit since the 20th. So we want to give you a true reflection of what the market is, as well as the cost of issuance have gone up a little bit. As we discussed, I know that Mr. Grimman from Colliers had done a new money issue for you back in June. For your electrical system for certificates of participation, and he used Jennifer Hansen at Dorsey and Whitney as your bond counsel attorney. And I got a quote from Ms. Hansen at Dorsey, and I got a quote from Todd Meyer Henry at Meyer Henry Sargent at Sioux Falls. And Jennifer's a very good attorney. I've worked with her before with the city of Rapid City, but she was going to charge a minimum of $32,000 to handle all 4 of these resolutions and close the transactions. Mr. Meyer Henry is going to do it for $15,000. So that's a significant amount of savings for the city from the standpoint of the costs. And so when I initially presented it on August 20th, I got $10,000 plugged in there because I hadn't talked to either attorney yet because I wasn't sure whom Jerry and Elaine might point me to as far as who they want to use. So then I did get the quotes from them, and so the costs are a little bit higher, as well as the interest rates are a little bit higher. So that's the difference as to why it was 92 on the 20th, and now it's 80,000. That could very well change when we go to price. Rates could be coming down. Might be back up to 92, might be back up to 100. What my expectation though is that we probably want to set minimum savings for all 4 at on a present value basis of $70,000, so that if in fact we go to price and rates have bumped up a little bit, we can still get the transaction done. And so from that standpoint, that's about a 2.4% net present value savings on the $2,820,000 that we would be refinancing. And so that would be my recommendation as to, a minimum savings, to set a floor so that the city knows what you're getting from the standpoint of where the savings have to be in order to move forward with the transaction. And that protects us as well, so that we know what your expectations are going into the transaction. So that would be my recommendation on $70,000. And we always work hard to try to get you the most savings that we can. And you can talk to anybody we work with, and they'll tell you that with regard to doing our refundings, as we did for the city back in 2012. So, and then the last thing I have here is in section 7 is just a a preliminary financing timeline. If you wanted to adopt the resolutions tonight to move forward with the refundings, we could have the offering documents available for distribution here in 2 weeks, and price the transaction, September 29th, get the call notices sent out, because you have to give notice to everyone who's a current holder that their bonds and certificates are being refunded, and you have to give them 30 days to do that. So we price it, you get your interest rate set, send out the notices, and then you close the transaction 30 days later. So, a lot of information to throw at you in a short period of time, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
How would we proceed if the council wanted to do this? Would we have to actually have a resolution?
We've got resolutions, I think, Gary.
Yes,
You said
yes,
something
yeah.
like, I've numbered them for you. Does that include the the minimum of the 70,000? Is that somewhere in that?
It doesn't. I have put in my letter of engagement,
Okay.
I believe it was, I can't remember off the top of my head, I apologize. Do you guys have a copy of that? My letter of engagement that I sent up about 10:30 or so on Friday, I believe. I want to say it was 40,000 for the COPs and 30,000 for the refund. Which is the 70,000. You have section 5 of it, if you've got my.
I'm trying to pull it up though.
Yeah, no problem. So that's set out in the letter of engagement, but not in the resolutions. So to the extent that you wanted to make a motion to adopt the resolutions, and then make a motion to, set the minimum savings at $7,000 on the par amount of the refunded bonds and refunded COPs, that'd be fine too.
So we gotta do each one of these resolutions one at a time now, correct?
I've got them here, I don't know if you looked at it when you came in, but I.
Yes, on the agenda, yep, so they're right there,
They're
so.
not quite in order with this, but they were in there, so. So we just have to have a motion on each of them.
Right.
So we're okay that way.
Yep. So that would be the way to do it.
Are there copies of these in here, Jerry?
I didn't, now they're so long, I didn't put them all in there. I think I just set them separate as a separate attachment.
They were separate emails.
Yeah, there's like 20 pages each. Is the actual resolution that long?
The one for the bonds is about 31 pages, I think, or 19 pages, and the other ones are around 13.
So does all this have to be put in paper?
No, it does not. No, you basically can just put. I know, it's a serious publishing bill. Yeah, what is that for the publication cost?
Today.
Just the minutes are over $100.
Are they? So we can coordinate with Todd Myra's office, and typically, you just basically have to put in that first block language up on top, and then the whereases, and then you don't have to publish the entire resolution.
I just got one question on that.
Yes.
The letter that you sent to them on 70,000, what would you read that into what ordinance, or at the end of the last one, we put down the bare minimum that we would okay?
Right, what I thought, Councilman, is that you would just say, for purposes of setting a minimum savings for refunding the 2012 bonds and the certificates of participation, the total minimum savings would have to be $70,000.
Would it be better at the start as you read it, so?
Actually, the resolutions are already written. And
Right.
they're 4 separate resolutions.
Yes, sir.
So we can't just set one $70,000 limit. We'd have to have a limit for each resolution, wouldn't we? Added in that resolution.
I don't know, I'd have to
As part of
defer to
the
Mr. Nelson to see what he thinks.
Would there have to be a basement savings as part of each motion? Or a minimum?
Well, in theory, like 2012A could adjust more than 2012B, right?
Right.
And so I think you'd want to do one floor as opposed to a floor on each, because
But in what form? Do we make a motion
In what form you make, okay,
in
so,
another resolution, which we don't have drafted? Or how do we set that floor?
Could the floor be set after the resolution, or does it have to be part of the initial
The motion for each
11,
resolution?
12, 13, or 14? I guess that's kind of the question.
I mean, you almost have to say, motion to approve resolution 20-11 for whatever series 2012A, contingent on, the total savings for all 4 resolutions passed, a floor of $70,000 savings.
I think you could do it that way.
And then you'd have to have that last part on all 4
On
of
each
them,
of them.
on each motion.
Could
For
we
each
just make the
resolution.
motion in the beginning to approve refunding of all of these as long as the minimum savings is 70,000, and then approve each resolution after that? Because the first motion would just be to approve refunding.
You'd have to do it the way,
You have to do
you'd have to do it the way
each one
Troy
with
is
the
saying,
resolution
because that
first.
way, this is like law school stuff, yeah. Each is co-contingent upon the other if you do it the way Troy said. So it's, you have to approve the separate ones because they were each at one point a separate appropriation or expenditure or financial action. So you have to do a resolution, to refund them essentially separately, but you have to have a contingency so that they're all dependent on one another, if that makes sense. I'm sorry, I'm not.
No, it does.
Better man.
Let me do some calculations real quick so we can do that. Okay? Thank you.
I guess my motion is just agree
What's your,
to refund.
Letters?
No, it's just recalculation for the 7,000.
You missed a big whole conversation.
Well, we determined, yeah, so each of the 4 motions has to finish with the same wording, contingent on the aggregate floor savings of $70,000 for
Recently, so that was awesome.
I think it is.
Each of the 4 approved resolutions.
There you go, you're gonna be able to make them.
We're just gonna approve them, and Kathy's gonna add the language. We're gonna say it one time.
You got it
And
out.
it's gonna be a copy
You got it
paste,
out.
copy paste, copy paste.
We're glad I could help.
Well, I'm glad that we could bring you back lots of days.
Yeah.
So do you get these? Well, I was just wondering how we're gonna set that
Make
floor.
sure we apply it. I'll try to remember.
I'll send you.
Okay. I suppose you're missing your cost allocation, allocation reports too, because I wasn't.
Not a strict.
I'll get there Thursday, alright? Then I'll hurry up.
I was concerned about that. Been on the road a lot.
Well, you split up with them, which that's a discussion people have. You could have had like 50.
No, that's true.
The only thing along that line is from the prior audit is nobody should be issuing their homes. That's my first one. I have them have it across the.
We'll do it.
So,
Let's fix that.
yeah. And there's certain things that only one person should do, so to say, like writing off something, the lead or void invoice or write off a customer balance. I think that should be, designated. We should have parameters on who do those in the system. Or we need to
So,
start showing more.
with regard to the first resolution, which is the 2012 A, correct, on the agenda?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, that would be a minimum savings, minimum net present value, just for NPV, minimum net present value savings of $6,000.
Oh, I thought we were gonna do this as an aggregate floor savings of 70.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, but I thought we
We're
had
gonna
to
read
do it.
the individual and the total aggregate of both
I
parts of the
think
motion.
you just have to, resolution contingent upon an aggregate savings of no less than
Aggregate savings for-
$70,000.
These 4 bonds, right?
For each issue.
So let me ask you this then, oh wise city council. Would each resolution number have to be a part of the motion then?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I think.
See, when you're reading resolution, the motion for resolution 11, that you'd have to include, as long as there's a minimum floor savings for resolution 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014, of a total aggregate of 70,000 or greater. Or a floor of 70,000.
I don't know that you have to specifically.
Well, think about it. Otherwise, what are we talking about? There's 4 separate motions. You gotta tie them all together somehow.
You would probably have to indicate the aggregate of what bond.
Yeah, you're right, you would. Okay.
Could we do this?
So if we say it once, can we copy? You paste that baby into the minute?
No.
I mean, it seems complicated, but you can't just say a total aggregate of $70,000 savings or a floor of 70,000. Of what, aggregate of what?
Right, you have to refer to those.
Have to be all 4
You
resolutions.
have to
It would
refer to
be-
each of the series.
Yeah, you
You
would,
refer to the series.
yeah.
Oh,
Can you put the,
So you've obviously done an individual number for each one. Do you anticipate that one would say go stocks up and one would go down and then netting together would be the best way to do it? Or do you expect them all to kind of go up and down the same?
They would pretty much go up and down the same. The only differential would be the bonds might, as they are here, be a little bit lower from the interest rate standpoint because they're bonds versus certificates of participation. So, but for purposes of setting a minimum net present value savings, you still have to have that number there. So, typically because we don't do these in 3s and 4s, typically there's just one series to be refinanced. We just say, refinance series, 2012A, dated such and such a date, so long as the city can save at least a minimum of, $7,000 in net present value savings on the par amount of the refunded bonds. So we're only identifying one issue. Here you have to identify all 4 because you have 4 separate resolutions. So I would think,
or let's just set a limit for each one.
well, and that's what I was kind of moving towards, Troy, is just doing it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, right.
All right. So we'll do those
So you're
numbers.
saying 6,000 minimum for 2012A. What was the next?
Yes, then for 2012B, it would be $7,000 of net present value savings, NPV savings. And then for the series 2013s, it would be $28,000 of net present value savings. And then for the bonds, it would be $29,000 of net present value savings. That adds up to $70,000.
All right.
What are you gonna charge? You just force the water.
But considering resolution 2012-11, 2012A, is there a motion to approve?
So the board moves to approve resolution 2020-11 refunding certificate of participation series 2012A Bridges Golf Course.
So long as.
So long as we have a minimum net present value savings of $6,000.
Bingo.
Right, exactly.
Thank you.
Motion by Doug and seconded, regarding resolution 2020-11 with a minimum net present value savings in the amount of $6,000. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Resolution 2020-12.
Anybody else want to crack at it? You want me to just keep going?
You just keep going, Troy.
Vote
Doing
to
great.
approve resolution 2020-12, refunding of the certificate of participation series 2012B West Substation, as long as the net present value has a minimum savings of $7,000.
Second.
Motion by Doug and seconded to approve resolution 2020-12, refunding the certificate of participation 2012B with a minimum net present value savings of $7,000. Any further discussion?
Can the public ask a quick question?
No, actually. During comments, you could, but not once the motion's been offered. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Consideration of resolution 2020-13, certificate of participation for Clubhouse and Event Center.
Don moves to approve resolution 2020-13, refunding the certificate of participation series 2013 for Bridges Clubhouse and Event Center, as long as the net present value savings is $28,000.
Check, second.
Motion by Doden and seconded to pass resolution 2020-13, refunding certificate of participation for the Bridges Clubhouse and Event Center with a net present value savings minimum of $28,000. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution passes.
Doden recommends passing resolution 2020-14 for refunding the general obligation bond series 2012 for the Lewis and Clark Regional Water System, as long as the net present value has a savings of $29,000.
Second.
Motion by Doden and seconded to approve resolution 2020-14, refunding general obligation bond series 2012 for Lewis and Clark Regional Water with a net present value savings minimum of $29,000. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution passes.
Thanks very much, folks. Appreciate the opportunity to work with you again, and we'll work hard for you. We'll listen again for the savings.
Did a great presentation, so thank you very much for your time.
Oh, certainly. My pleasure. Sorry to have everybody have. Yeah, and the resolution authorizes the enter into our agreement. So you can just have those signed and send them.
Thank you for bringing the savings opportunity to our attention.
Thank you, appreciate it. It's great to be able to do it again.
No discussion on informational items. Is there a motion for payment of bills?
Thank you very much. Second.
Motion by Doden and seconded to approve payment of bills. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The bills is approved. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moves.
Motion by Doden seconded. All in favor say aye.
Liquor store committee. Me, you and you.
Yeah.
You guys wanna look at those applications? Huh?
Over here.
They said there were several.
Can I make a quick introduction?
Yeah, are you Brian?
Yes.
That's what I thought.
Yep. So I'm Brian Birch. I'm going to be building a house down on Title 6, 13th Street, right south of Crudy's. So I'll work with Jerry about coming in one of the next meetings to talk about property lines, giving some property back to Crudy's from when they located, and therefore asking for additional feet out of the golf course area the city owns and a dual driveway. But excited to move to town and excited to hopefully give something back to the community.
All right. Where are you from?
Marion.
Marion?
Yep.